have made a really excellent decision today. You've turned into the Pastors of Pain show.
Turned into?
Turned into?
Tuned?
Tuned?
They've not turned into.
Maybe
they would become the show.
Well, maybe they made a left-hand turn. Maybe they were going down the podcast aisle and they made a left-hand turn and there was like whammo right there. Awesome.
Bishop Barron, what does he know? Matt Fradd, the Thomistic Institute, they don't know anything.
They don't. But
these guys, they really don't know anything.
There's a lot of mediocre podcasts and we're one step above them.
We are one of them.
One step ahead. Just barely above.
Happy October, everyone.
It is October.
It is. Fall weather. It's nice.
We only have
This is our pumpkin spice edition of Pastors of Pain.
Oh, stop, please.
We're here
making my stomach turn.
We're sipping our pumpkin spice
lattes,
coffee lattes, and eating pumpkin spice bread.
Okay, one, that is not happening. Two, you couldn't torture me and get me to do something like that.
I'm going to go to Hideaway and order a pumpkin spice pizza.
No way. There's not.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was going to turn on Hideaway.
Pumpkin spice is of the devil.
The OG Hideaway would never do anything like that.
They probably would if people would buy it. They have the cauliflower pizza. Come on.
Well, I mean, people eat that because of the crust.
Let's get real.
Gluten intolerant.
I mean, still, come on.
I'm not sure I like the smell.
They have it at the store, too.
Fall.
They have it at Walmart. I'm like, ugh.
What?
Cauliflower. Ugh.
Wow.
Oh,
I just got angry about cauliflower. Feelings. Every child who's listening to this podcast right now is just thinking.
I'm also going to say something
I don't have to eat my
I've been
vegetables.
wanting to say for a long time, but I haven't had the opportunity, and that is pineapple does not belong on pizza. Okay, let's get down. Oh
my gosh.
Let's get down.
You just come in, throw a few Molotov cocktails in.
No, let's move on. Let's move on to our topic.
I'm not sure I can.
What we should do is every episode we should say something really, really controversial, and then move on. And
then just move on. Are you saying that the limit of controversial
I'm just going to make a list of, but then don't even discuss it. Pineapple does not belong on pizza. And now on to our topic. Yoga pants are not pants. And now on to our topic. And other such, I'm just going to make a list of controversial things.
Denim is not a material worn by priests with clerics. And so what do you think you're doing today, Father O'Brien? Let's move on. Well, denim? Is that you're looking at me. I didn't pick a good topic.
What did you say?
I said denim is not a material worn by priests and clerics.
Yes. That's great. Okay, no, that's good. Now we move on. See? I'm going to make a list. This could be awesome. We could just do a 30-minute show of just I go and then you go, and we say controversial things.
But those were not very controversial.
There are two genders.
There are...
Your turn.
We just say stuff.
Marriage is between a man and a woman.
I don't...
You got nothing.
I don't have another...
You don't have any hot takes?
I don't have any... Windmill farms should be eliminated.
Wow. Okay.
Because they kill birds.
These are controversial takes.
Yeah, get rid of them.
Okay.
Solar power, I'm not sure works. Oh my God.
I don't know if that wasn't...
That's not a controversial topic.
It's expensive.
Solar power produces more pollution by making the things than it...
Paul VI is the most underrated pope of the 20th century.
Ouch. Come on. I feel like... Remember Saturday Night Live? When coffee talk? He's like...
The chickpea is neither a chick nor a pea.
And he would just...
Discuss.
Talk about
Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island. Discuss.
Yeah. Is that what we're going to do?
I just think, it's time to make some hot takes.
Okay.
And
then just drop them and move on.
And then move on. So a couple weeks ago, Father Kerry, we did a show on atheism.
What? Did we?
We did.
I don't remember
but
last
some
week.
People didn't believe it. I'm just kidding. And it was related to because that week, so sometimes when we pick topics, we do it sort of around, some current event or some talk you and I are giving somewhere. So I gave a talk to our youth group on the opening night of back in mid-September of our youth group on atheism, right? For our young people especially. They're seeing it, they're running into people. People are trying to kind of convince them to not just not be Catholic, but to not even believe in God. And so trying to give them some of the skills that they need, or some of the information they need to be able to believe in God, and then, take that a step further. So we did a show on atheism, and it got people were very responsive to it. And there was some feedback of, hey, thanks, that really helped me, talk to my atheist brother or my atheist friend, my roommate, So we wanted to go a little step further and sort of dive a little bit deeper into atheism. And so here's a controversial take. Agree or disagree with this, Father Kerry? Atheism is a result of intellectual pride. I'll wait.
Let me. I'm internal.
Or to say the root of atheism is intellectual pride.
Yeah, there is a lot.
Change my mind.
There is a lot there. There is a lot there of intellectual pride, of how people think somehow that they are more intelligent than everybody else who's come before them in history. That they're going to produce something that does not work outside a laboratory or a laboratory, wherever part of the continent you're from.
So the science argument?
Yes. I look at it two ways. That, maybe the biology. Aristotle was a biologist who observed nature and how nature naturally functions and things operate. And what I think is with most of modern atheism, Marx, Engels, Feuerbach, Jean-Paul Sartre, Hume, go down the list of these, and then what they call the four horsemen of atheism, these new guys that have certainly come on the scene in the last 20 years. I don't think they look at nature. They look into their own minds.
Ooh.
And then
self-referential?
Yeah, like as one of my buddies says, a self-licking ice cream cone.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that. That's hilarious.
A self-licking ice cream cone. That's self-referential, that it works really great in the mind, in the laboratory, testing that. And then when you put it onto the streets, it just causes utter chaos. I mean, like Nietzsche, for example, that works, that works in his mind. But what kind of mind does that man have? And we would say probably somewhere on the sides of the scary mind. Marx the same way, that when Marxism was introduced into Russia as like the Bolshevik uprising, we saw the fruits of it, which were sort of the destruction of the family, the destruction of progression, and the destruction of beauty.
Yeah, so it has sort of on a surface is kind of attractive, and it seems sort of logical, but then you take it deeper,
right,
and you play out its potential fruit, and it's not good. So Marxism, right? Should everyone be equal, and should the government sort of control the means of production?
Do you want to help the poor be lifted up?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do want to help the poor.
But that, should that come from the government? Some.
Yeah. There's the counter to Marxism was Leo the 13th's document Rerum Novarum on the new things, and he went directly against. Was it Leo the 13th or Leo the 9th?
Leo the 13th.
Leo the 13th.
Yep.
But what I also think is problematic with atheism is it looks back on things that have been written and does not enter in to the dialogue with the item, such as the book of Genesis. People will look back at the book of Genesis and they'll say, this is not a scientific manual, and I only understand science, and I will only look at things that are scientific and say, this is true. It's provable. when you look at it through that lens, you don't step into the world of the author of the book of Genesis, who is not trying to make a scientific manual. There's nothing about like, white dwarfs or red giants or, orbital patterns of
gravity.
Yeah, there's nothing about that. Dark matter. I said the other day during a homily that the universe is like pi billion years old. I can never remember how old it is, so I just pi billion. That reminds me, it's 3.14 billion years old.
Yeah.
They don't look into the way a piece of work is composed.
Well, the book of Genesis, I mean, the creation story in Genesis is like 3 pages.
Yes.
Depending on how small your print is. But it's not very, it can't.
And one of my astronomy books was like 400 pages in college.
Yeah.
Like, okay, quarks, big giant
Yeah, there's
suns.
more written in that book about the black holes than the creation story.
But what the creation story is trying to tell us is something different about the dignity of man and woman, the beauty of man and woman in relationship to creation. So when we go back, the book of Genesis is trying to tell a story that doesn't exist in the culture around it. And that's what I think is lost in the intellectual pride, that at the heart of the gospel is God who is out of space and out of time. God is other being. He is not part of creation, so therefore you can't find him, quote, in creation. Sure. The God who is created everything out of nothing, who's the first mover, who put the Big Bang into motion, that God is altogether different from us. And this is what I think the atheists have difficulty doing. Humility. Because remember, it says how, like the God that was actually the reading from a couple of weeks ago, it says Jesus humbled himself in order to become a slave. And that is what we hear.
Philippians?
Yeah, yeah.
It is.
The Lord Jesus Christ humbled himself, becoming a slave, being born in the likeness of men. And that's the different story that the gospel is presenting to the world, that if God is willing to humble himself to become a slave, then that's the same way the intellect. It actually preceded that with that there's a unity of mind, body, soul, and heart. Mind, body, soul, and heart in love. So when there's like this, there's this disorder of the mind, body, soul, and heart, and there's not love that is operating in it, then what do we do as people? Then we just like rebel against everything. And that's what I love about Aristotle, because Aristotle looked at stuff and said, how is this operating together? How is this homogeneous? It's functioning together, like all of nature, all of the planets, all of water. And he just observed and saw. And what happens in the mind is the mind has to be humbled for nature to teach us. The mind has to be humbled.
Sort of an awe before a mystery that's that's not totally knowable. We can know. It's not that God is unknowable. It's that we'll never know everything of God or God's creation.
And that's what when the mind is humbled, which we have that difficulty in both atheism and I think in Christian pride. I mean, like, atheists are not the only ones that are doing it. Christians the same way.
Sure.
When we did a little show about the Second Vatican Council and the documents, most people, when you say, hey, the Second Vatican Council documents, they say, well, I disagree with them. And you're like, I'm sorry, tell me which one you've read. I've read none of them.
Yeah.
Like, Rerum Novarum, never read it. Like, that wasn't in Vatican II. Deus Caritas Est, never read it.
Nope.
That wasn't in Vatican II either.
Yeah, so there's a humility, and that. So what's the opposite of humility is pride. So there's this, I think, a lot among non-believers, and this is not a blanket statement. This is not all atheists, all non-believers, but there's a current, I think, especially in modern day atheism, that is there. That's prideful.
Yeah. I agree.
Intellectually prideful. And I would say this, I think a question to ask an atheist friend, again, in all charity. This is part of my talk to the kids last month was, in conversations with atheists, charity above all. It doesn't have to be super hostile, but to ask the question, what would God need to do to prove himself?
Yeah.
Like, is there any proof that could be put before you where you would believe that there is a God? And I think just the atheism, is my other objection. It's a very pessimistic worldview that you're sort of defined by what you don't believe in. I just think it's just for me a different way to go through life. That's hard. It's hard for me to understand first and foremost as a Christian, as a person of hope. But that's very forward looking. Anyway, that question. So, what would God need to do to prove himself?
One of the things we're doing with our college students is we have these classes on Sunday night called Catechesis. Starts at 7, goes to 7:45.
I see what you did there.
And then
word.
Yeah, the chat, echesis. And so we throw an idea up. So we're for 3 weeks.
I saw the board. That you have that big whiteboard in your lobby.
Yeah, that was just for people to look at. That's my handwriting.
It was crazy.
Yeah, so we basically break it out into 3 15-minute sections and then also breakout sessions. And one of the things when we were doing, the title was, God, are you really that stupid? ? Like people
You're not referring to God.
No, God.
Referring to people.
Yeah. People who say, you believe on a God?
Oh, you must be dumb. Yeah.
That you must be dumb. And what we want to do in Catechesis...
I'm not dumb, you're dumb. I'm just kidding.
Is we want students to talk. So when someone asks them the question, like, do you believe in God? The question back is, well, yes, I do. Do you believe in God? And if they say no, then you ask them the follow-up question, like, well, name a God you believe in.
Yeah. So what kind of God don't you believe in?
Yeah. So then you start asking these questions, and then when actually you start to talk to people about God, and you dialoguing with someone who's an atheist, you do it first from kindness, as you just mentioned. You do it out of love,
charity. Come on,
but then
we're
you
brothers
ask
and sisters.
Then you can ask the question, well, what kind of God do you believe the Christian God to be?
Yeah, what are you rejecting?
Yeah, what are you rejecting? And so from that, you have this little combo, and they'll come up with stuff like, I don't believe in an angry, wrathful God.
Could mean either.
And your response is, I don't believe in that God either.
What else?
I don't. Yeah, next. Like I don't believe in a God that would, as we talked about, miscarriages a few weeks ago. I don't believe in a God that would throw children into hell who haven't been baptized.
Sure.
And you say, I don't believe in that God either.
Okay.
Me neither. I don't believe in a God who, and then fill in the blank. And they just keep filling in the blank. And oftentimes from that combo, you can say, I actually don't believe in that either.
Yeah, you find some common ground with someone where you maybe previously thought there would be no common ground. Yeah, we both don't believe in that. But then, now you've opened up a conversation. Now let me tell you what I do believe. I do believe there is one God, Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord. You can get into kind of the creedal statements that we hold as Christians, but then to be able to back those up. But anyway, no, I'm with you. But that those questions I think are super important in kind of creating that dialogue.
Yeah, in that, in order to have that dialogue, Christians must have their minds informed. St. Paul says, be transformed by the renewal of your minds. And so it means to go back and study our Catholic faith. And if you're an evangelical Protestant, I encourage you to study Catholicism. Go back and read the Council of Chalcedon, read the Council of Ephesus, read the Council of Nicaea.
Where does one find such things?
Well, you could go to New Advent, or you could
Google.
You can just go to open your Google machine. Hey, Google.
The World Wide Web.
Hey, Google. Hey Alexa, Hey Alexa, find me the documents of the Council of Nicaea. Bing! The Council of Nicaea in 325. She doesn't sound like that. It means for all of us to go back and study these things because there are these intellectual giants who debated these things out in the first 5, 6, 7 centuries.
Yeah, who were not dummies.
No. They're the smartest minds in both the Greek and the Roman empires who are dialoguing about this. I mean, like when you hear these theologians from what are now modern day Turkey. The Council of Ephesus is Ephesus is now in modern day Turkey. Nicaea, modern day Turkey.
Yep.
So these people, these bishops who gathered together, these theologians who gathered together, were not just, some people who couldn't stitch an idea together. They were nuancing words like homoousion and homoousia. Like his nature is like God or his nature is God. And those dialogues, those arguments, those debates at those councils are so critical to answering the questions today because they have wrestled with both, the emergence of science in their era. Gregory the Great. Gregory the Great is writing in the 10th century, I think it is, 10th or 11th century. He's writing on, wait. Is that Albert the Great? Albert the Great was Thomas Aquinas' professor.
Yep.
Albert the Great is writing about, like orbital, like balls floating in the sky, moving around and how they're held into place. I mean, he's writing about that, as the university system in Paris.
Early 1200s.
Yeah. So there are these intellectual giants that are out there. Thomas Aquinas. I mean, to go back and read like his ideas, I really like him. Like he chooses like what they call the negative way. Instead of attributing attributes to God, like the right hand of God, because we don't know, like in a way, who God is.
Yeah.
It's pure being and spirit. So Thomas would take that kind of negative route and say, well, this is who God is, but then this is who he is not. We know less about him than we know more about him.
And that's the kind of the humility before the awesome mystery of God. But I think also, I think part of as Christians, as Catholics, we ought to know our own stuff, know our creed, know why we believe what we believe. But then we ought not be afraid to read what are the major kind of atheistic arguments.
Right.
To go back and read.
The problem of evil.
Who are kind of the most articulate defenders of atheism that we should be able to read them and to engage with them.
Go back and read Hitchens.
And so for us, it's not a pride of like that person has nothing to offer and nothing to teach me.
Hitchens is smart.
And that's where lately, and COVID has sort of created like a lot more sort of internet content. I mean, as if we needed that. But there's been like some really interesting kind of debates lately of just two really smart people. One, a Catholic priest. One, a sort of a strident atheist.
Oh, the one with Pines with Aquinas.
Yeah, Gregory Pine did one. And there's been others. Trent Horn, who works for Catholic Answers, he's done a couple. And they're so dang interesting. And they're pretty high level. They're very philosophical. But we can go toe-to-toe with any of the world's great intellects because, present company excluded, we have some of the world's great intellects. Thomas Aquinas, going way back, but in our modern times, some of the most articulate defenders of that atheism is wrong. You want a hot take? Atheism is wrong.
Well,
do I love atheists? I do. Yeah. But they're wrong. There is a God.
Right. And just to be able to talk about, like, once you study and you read some of your, we often call them opponents, but your friends' arguments, like you read Hitchens' stuff. There's a Dawkins. to read some of these things and browse them and see where their thoughts are coming from, and then present something new to them. You know, it's I really love. It was Paul VI writing on evangelization. Evangelia.
You do this every time.
Oh my.
Evangelium Nunciandi.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
He said, study these things, study your faith, and then also do something. Present to them something new. One of my favorite things to present to atheists, especially when we're talking, is, the I would say the problem of contingency. Like, why is there something and not nothing? Why does stuff exist and not nothing exist?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean,
and to have the humility to be able to enter into that dialogue. So I know, especially in a university town, on a university campus, there can be a lot of, anyone without a PhD doesn't know anything.
Right,
which is,
right.
Ugh, it's gross. You look at the kind of the humble faith of somebody who had a third grade education. So it's not a matter of sort of degrees behind your name. But that can oftentimes lead to this pride that I know better than the wisdom of the 2,000-year wisdom of the world's. I mean, this sounds prideful, but the world's kind of smartest institution. It was Catholics who came up with the idea of the modern university. We know what we're doing now. Are we perfect? Are we scandal free?
No,
of course not. But from an intellectual standpoint, we've got it down.
Astronomy, biology, genetics,
full philosophy,
computers.
theology, And so, for someone who doesn't believe, it's important. My hope would be that there would be some humility to recognize that as smart as you are, there's a history that can also teach you something. And that's true of all of us. There's somebody who would say, like, I disagree with the church teaching on this or that. A Catholic, I would say, really? Like, so you've determined that right. better? That's the church says it's wrong, but you say it's right, or the church says it's right and you say it's wrong? It's pride.
Yeah.
It's pride, my brother,
mine
sister.
was nuclear war. I always thought, like, oh yeah, nuclear war is a great idea. I mean, we eliminate our enemy very quickly, and they never mess with us again. And then
you read the Catechism on the Fifth Commandment.
And then you start to meet people who have survived nuclear war, or their children who are an effect of it. And
you realize, a nuclear bomb does not discriminate between combatants and non-combatants.
Right. And then the heavy materials in the water supply 60 years later are still polluting people's bodies and causing cancer. Yeah. And so you have to humble this mind of ours to, as St. Paul said a couple weeks ago in that reading, the mind, the heart, the desires, bring it together in love. Because most debates don't start out with love. They start off with, I'm going
to beat you down.
Throwing Molotov cocktails at each other. Shooting rubber bullets at each other. Just doing those things that what riots do. The word riot in French is to yell.
Oh, really?
And so that's what most debates turn into is riot.
Yeah, just yell. And you're not really listening.
Yelling.
So having that humility. And that's something, as Christians, we would say that we pray for. Asking the Lord to humble us, to make us dirt. That's where humility comes from. In the face of these kind of arguments that you and I, we have something to learn from an atheist. We do. And then hopefully that the atheist also learns that they have something, that they're humble enough to be able to, that they can learn something from us. So just the idea of rooting out that intellectual pride that you and I might have. But I'm of the contention that that's a real source of atheism. Pride. And pride is not good, and pride is usually the source of our downfall.
Let's, in the words of one of the greatest Saturday Night Live episodes, let's throw it on the ground.
I don't know what that is.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. We're going to go.
Oh no.
We're going to go.
Ended that way?
Have a great week. We'll be back next week. We love you.
Peace.